The Grand Theft Auto series has had its fair share of minigames, from taxi driving to firefighting to big rig trucking. Some of them, admittedly, have been more annoying than others. But I don't want to talk about darts or tennis. I want to talk about one of the San Andreas minigames. It's a side mission that's introduced once, very early on, and then nearly completely forgotten about for the majority of the game. I'm talking, of course, about the burglary missions. After doing just a few tasks for your fellow gang member Ryder near the beginning of the game, you unlock the Boxville, and with it, the ability to trigger the burglary missions at any point between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. Like the paramedic and vigilante missions, burglary challenges you with completing a set goal within a time limit. The limit being the time until the sun rises, and the goal being to steal as much as you can from people's houses. It was awesome. But not quite as awesome as it could have been. I want to start this video off with a little clarification. I've been playing the GTA series for a long time. A really long time. But, like a lot of people, I didn't really like it until the PlayStation 2 rolled into town. Grand Theft Auto 3 blew my mind. Here was a game that I could really, for the first time, do anything in a realistic-looking world. And trust me, in 2001, this was one of the most realistic-looking worlds around. I could be a mafia underling, a pay-for-play assassin for hire, but I didn't have to. I could be a paramedic, or a police officer, or I could do this. Look at it. Yeah. So, why does this matter? Here's GameSpot in 2003, 1 year after Vice City was released, talking about Rockstar's new Grand Theft Auto game, San Andreas. The most intense, deepest, and most lucrative side mission type in the series. I mean, it's great, don't get me wrong. There is something visceral about sneaking around the house while the inhabitants are sleeping, trying not to move too fast and wake them, and quickly shooting them in the head before they telepathically alert the police. But it wasn't nearly as good as they promised. Here's another quote from that same article. Note the underlined section. Highly reflective of the new robbery missions in the game. I will now play a video clip and read aloud the previous phrase. One of the very first images released for GTA San Andreas showed a gang of armed hoods sneaking up on a residence in the dead of night, shotguns drawn. Now look at the screen and you tell me, does that seem highly reflective to you? Yes, I am being a little bit selective, but I had waited 2 years after Vice City, and 2 years was a long time in the early 2000s, back before the Aztecs had transported us into the darkest timeline that we're currently in. But I ramble off and I have a point to make. This is my point. This is fun. All of this. This is a good idea. This is something that I have never been able to do in an open-world game of this type before. Not only that, but it is something that I have very rarely been able to do in open-world games of its type since. Games these days have devolved into search for the glowing, blinky object, but this could have been a game all on its own. You may know already that San Andreas made use of the stealth mechanic that Rockstar developed for Manhunt, to a limited extent. But given the appropriate effort and consideration, this would have made a fantastic third-person stealth robbery game. Think about it. Take a smaller open world, something, say, the size of GTA 4. We'll use this handy-dandy map from IGN, circa 2008, and we'll remove the unnecessary to robbery bits. Ignore the flying in the boats, and the massive industrial complexes, and there's a lot of room to grow here. Now, I do honestly believe that there wasn't enough memory on the PS2's disc to be able to add more to San Andreas. It is a packed game. And that's a shame, though, because apart from the generic pathfinding problems that can plague every open-world game, the main issue with cramming so many things into San Andreas is that there isn't as much space for the little touches. For instance, there are a very limited amount of items that you can steal. There are televisions, of course. 6 different types of them, in fact, depending on how fancy the house is. And there are stereos. There are 4 different types of stereos. And that's about it for the variety. Some houses may have VCRs or video game consoles next to the TV, and some houses have microwaves in their kitchen, but that's about it. And to make it worse, no one item is worth more than any other item. The amount of money you get from, say, a massive flat-screen TV is the same amount of money you would get from a handheld radio. Occasionally now you may find money floating around in someone's living room or a baseball bat or pistol in their bedroom, but that is it. And then sometimes this happens. Let's go back to that GameSpot article. Door locked so you can break windows and climb through? That sounds awesome. Let's see that in action. Well, balls. Unfortunately, and again with the provision that I have sunk hours upon hours upon hours into just robbing houses, so they are doing something right. But now, let's talk about all the crappy aspects. Because of our previously mentioned disk space issue, there are not only very few types of items you can burgle, but very few types of houses that you can burgle in. Also, there doesn't seem to be any differentiation between houses that you can enter and houses you can't. Many homes that are clearly residential and apparently robbable simply do not allow you to enter. And I can't help but wonder if this is a leftover idea from the previous build where windows were truly going to be smashable and these houses could be entered by other means. I promise you, I spent many hours trying. You can't. And no matter how expensive the house that you're burgling looks, you will always find the same 14 items. With very little work, this could have been a fantastic idea to focus an entire game around. Just think about it for a moment. We take our slightly smaller game world that we created, and now we'll populate it with nearly all residential areas. Sorry, different types of residential areas. Better. And we fill them up and make them look like actual homes that people live in, because we can do that now. See, this does not look like the home of the sweet couple that I just murdered in the back bedroom. This looks like a Bluth family model house. And this is how well interiors look in Grand Theft Auto 5 these days. Imagine if this was the house from which our burglarization could take place. I'd take that telescope for one, which leads me into the next point. We need a higher variety of things to rob. Now, we don't need Bethesda-level thievery. That's basically impossible in open-world driving games because it's simply too much for the engine to support. There's no need to make that spoon and that fork an object that I can pick up, it's just not necessary. But things like expensive vases, guitars, large boxes with strange lettering, cases of beer, cell phones, laptops, desktops, tablets, lamps, all of these seem to be perfectly reasonable. You can take it one step further and think about how such a game could progress, where eventually you might be able to hire a partner and get a dolly, and then you could begin stealing things like refrigerators and stoves and washing and drying machines and couches and entertainment centers and marble statues. The list of possibilities is massive. But for now, this is as close as we have gotten. Yeah, there's the heists in GTA 5, and there's other games like Thief or Fallout that offer similar ideas, but you know what I mean. Realistic world, responsive AI, forced stealth, main focus breaking and entering. I don't know, maybe I'm just a closet kleptomaniac. But that's the game that I want to see. So, I guess that's about enough for the first episode of Tangential Extrapolation. If you have any thoughts or comments on anything I said here, please let me know in the usual YouTube ways listed below. And the big yellow button in the center of the screen there is for anyone who would care to subscribe. I've been Chris with Filthy and Free Publishing, and I am going to stop talking right now.